Last year I stayed at the Glacial Ridge campsite at Mille's Kathio State Park. It's a nice site in the woods near a big beaver pond. While I was there, I had a chance to hike over to the Black Bass Lake campsite, which is on this beautiful lake, and I decided I really wanted to stay there. So this year, I managed to get a Saturday reservation. That's my backpack on the table there. It's a beautiful spot to camp. Here it is from the lake shore, taking a look at the lake from both sides. And the campground itself with its tent pad and picnic table. And there are a lot of trees for hammock camping, lots of options. Well, let's backtrack a little bit. Here's the ranger station when you come into the park. After checking in, they direct you to a small parking lot by the camper service area that has spaces just for Glacial Ridge and black bass. To get to the black bass site, you walk past the ranger station again to get to that road. You cross the road, and then maybe, 50 feet up to the left, the trail branches off from there. Here's what the trail looks like. It's wide and pretty easy going, not a lot of steep hills. There's a lot of signage along the way. You share the trail with equestrians, although I didn't see anybody on horseback this time. I did run across a lot of horseshoe prints. But I also came upon a number of deer tracks in the mud as I was walking along, and I actually saw 2 deer later. While the trail is mostly through the woods, once in a while it opens up to these scenes of the wilderness in the sunlight. But again, during a hot day, it's nice to be in the cool forest. Well, here's the signpost for the black bass site. Then you go down the hill to the lake shore. And again, here's some of the trees at the campsite. I selected my hammock location between these two. Put up the hammock. Used my underquilt, even though it was hot during the day. A little cool in the evening made it worthwhile using the underquilt. The bug net was an absolute necessity. There were a lot of mosquitoes and flies. And then I propped up my rainfly all night so I could look out at the stars, and then in the morning I had views like this. There's no food locker at the site, so I hung my food up in a bag from a tree. Here's a few more pictures of the serene beauty of Black Bass Lake. The water was absolutely still, and you could get those great reflections in the water. Well, one thing about being a solo camper, and it's quiet, and you tend to hear and see things that maybe you'd miss otherwise, like this spotted leopard frog. He let me take his picture a couple of times. And then this dragonfly landed on my firewood, and he kept flying around in circles and landing back like he was showing off. It was kind of cool to watch him. He was there for a long time. I noticed, and I was surprised, that his round head has complete movement up and down and to the right. I didn't realize that they did that. I also caught a picture of this bright yellow damselfly that caught my eye. Larger animals, there was a pair of loons in the lake, but they swam pretty far from where I was, and I had to use my macro lens to take their picture. Most of the time I had to be content listening instead of watching. Eventually one swam closer, and I thought I might get some good pictures and maybe even some video. This guy, wouldn't you know it, the minute I pointed the camera at him, he ducked under and disappeared. And I kept waiting for him to come up, and I'm scanning the lake hoping that I can get a great shot of a loon surfacing from the water, but I never did. And then finally I noticed he had swum underwater all the way to the other side of the lake as far from me as possible. Oh well, I did manage to capture a picture of a couple of swans on the other side of the lake too. Well, I had a good day sitting by the lake and hiking in the local trails, and as the sun started to set, I enjoyed watching the way the landscape changed in that subtle light. I thought the trees in this picture looked really pretty as the sun was setting. And then once it was down, the pink wisps of clouds in the sky and the dark profiles of the shore across the way. While I was making my campfire, the almost full moon poked through the trees, and I hoped that it would go over the lake, but my astronomy was wrong and it kind of traveled over the forest instead. Oh well. I enjoyed the campfire for about an hour, and then all of a sudden An amazing swarm of mosquitoes seemed to come out of nowhere and circled me. It was getting really bad. I think there must have been literally dozens of them around my head. So I ended up putting on one of those head nets just so that I could survive out there and tolerate being by the fire. Here I am modeling it during the day. It's a good look, isn't it? I think next year everybody will be wearing one. I was grateful to have netting on my bug net in my hammock. But the next morning was a lot less buggy, and as I pulled the netting back, there was a beautiful sunny day. Well, I had breakfast after that, and around 11 o'clock I left the park, but it was a very nice, quick overnight stay at Black Bass Lake Campsite in Mille Kathio State Park in Minnesota near Lake Mille. Thanks for watching.